you ever wish your day wasn't dictated by your health? Are you tired of being tired all the time, or is pain holding you back from enjoying your time with your family? Would you like to manage your symptoms holistically, but you just don't know where to begin? I am so excited that you're here. This podcast will help you understand how natural remedies work so you can relieve your symptoms and live a fuller life. My name is Penny. I'm an occupational therapist, past pharmaceutical rep, a mom, and a wife with a strong faith, and for 25 years, I battled through debilitating Crohn's disease. I took all the medicine and did all the surgeries that stole so much time with my family, but never truly healed me. I finally realized if I was going to survive this disease, I needed to open my stubborn eyes to alternative solutions. I researched how perfectly our bodies work with plants and a lifestyle that made my health less of a burden to my family and aligned so beautifully with my faith and my medical training. If you are ready to reclaim your life with holistic options that are easy to implement as a busy mom and provide relief that lasts, this is the podcast for you. Welcome back, y'all. This is Penny Sampler, your host of the Becoming Natural podcast. I think this is episode 28. Know the role of chronic inflammation to make smarter choices and empower your life. I took a little offshoot after episode 22, which episode 22 was about the best foods to consider when eating for Crohn's disease, addressing the difference between gluten intolerance, gluten allergy, and celiac disease. That was the offshoot I took when I interviewed my sister about having celiac, which I thought was really important when we talk about the difference in everybody who has different issues with the same disease. We kind of get grouped in this big category of Crohn's or colitis or celiac or IBS or IBD, but really all of our illnesses are quite unique. So my triggers may not be your triggers and vice versa. Some things may work for me or they won't work for you. And to be honest, I'm not sure that doctors even know exactly what we have most times when they say IBS or IBD, which is inflammatory bowel syndrome or inflammatory bowel disease. I think that's kind of a catch-all for we have no idea what's going on with you, but you got something. So that's why I think it's really important for any of us. And I would say this even if you have an illness diagnosed like me with Crohn's or my sister with celiac or the millions of people who have colitis and Crohn's, even if you're a healthy person, and I'm going to eventually say this, but we have got to start paying attention to what we put in our bodies or around our bodies or in our environments, in our homes, because even though you may not be feeling the effects as a healthy person, God love you that you're healthy, the effects will catch up to you maybe at some point when your threshold gets to a point that your body can't manage those toxins anymore. So many of us are ill, but it's because our thresholds have reached a point where we cannot fight the toxins and we get sick. And there are many healthy people who may not be feeling the effects of those toxins, but we are all ingesting the toxins in our food. And eventually, most of us will find some sort of symptom that comes from those toxins. So I think it's an important episode for everyone, whether you are healthy or whether you are ill. It's important to know what inflammation is and what it does to our body. So it has been an important clarification to go back through the gluten and the celiac, and I have already at least 5 episodes planned ahead of us because instead of doing this really high-level discussion about loads of information that you need to remember, I'm going to go slowly through each segment that I really want to highlight so that everyone completely understands, especially if you're a beginner or if you get overwhelmed easily. The whole goal of my podcast is if you're a mom, if you've got little ones, if you're sick, let's figure out how to be healthy. Let's figure out how to clean up our lifestyle, but not make it overwhelming. So there is so much more to address within that episode 22 about eating for Crohn's disease. And so that is where I am kind of launching from here. But we're going to start today with defining inflammation, basically. But we're going to break it down into simple and thorough, smaller bites, no pun intended, to truly understand food and inflammation that it causes. But before we go on, I intended to read a review each podcast, and that lasted all but one time because I forgot after one time. And I just want you to know that I read every review that you write, and I am so incredibly grateful. I get emails from you. I get emails from people I've never met before. I don't call you strangers. I am so moved by the emails that come to me and the people who are grateful or asking questions, because that's what I'm here for. You have to know that when people ask me what I do, I crack up just a little bit before I say, oh, I have a podcast. Of course, I have other things going on, that I have a book and a website, and I'm working on getting my health practitioner's license or certification. But seriously, I giggle a little because this is the one thing I was told that I had to do. I had to have a podcast in order to launch the book that I was a part of. And I listened to these precious, amazing women coach me, and I hung on every one of their encouraging words. I took notes of what to do and how to do everything that they told me to do to launch a book. But when they said I needed a podcast, I literally thought, okay, I'll do everything that you say, but I'm not doing that. So this happens to me every time I say never. So I am truly here because I really don't know how I got here, to be honest, because I said I wasn't going to do it. And then here I am. But I have really fallen in love with podcasting. I don't make money doing this, but I am so passionate about helping anyone get through Crohn's disease or an autoimmune disease of any kind without feeling defeated, helping you to find your strength through your faith, to get out of bed each day, to shout to the world, not to do as I did, but as I am learning to do for my body now, because I am so much healthier now than I was years ago when I was following all the rules, quote, rules. It has been mind-bending, life-changing, eye-opening, all of it. I could make an entire list. I just wish that I had someone telling me all the things when I was so desperate. So your reviews help me feel like I'm actually making a difference, even if it's just for one person, but that one person is worth it to me. So the review I'm going to read today says, relate. I love that I can relate to so many of Penny's thoughts on clean living. No one is perfect with health and diet, but plants are amazing. Can't wait to listen to the coming podcast. From Empty Nester Mom. Thank you so much, Empty Nester Mom. It makes my day to be able to make a difference in your life or anybody's life that you can pass this along to. So thank you for taking the time to write a review. But as I started researching and going deeper into this episode, taking a dive, I kept taking notes on the side to address a growing list of subjects that I kept thinking, oh, I need to talk about that. Oh, I need to talk about that too. Oh, and this, I need to talk about that. So bottom line, we're going to start with inflammation, because chronic inflammation is everything. Whether you're sick or healthy, just like I said before, we don't want chronic inflammation. Chronic means long-term, all the time, rising from something in our life that is not going away. Anything we put on, in, or around our body has the potential to cause harmful inflammatory effects in our body. So let's start simply with, what is inflammation and why would our body have a harmful reaction when we are ultimately designed to heal? Because I firmly believe that our bodies are designed to heal when we put them in a perfect environment to heal. So when people reach out to me for help after being diagnosed with Crohn's, one of the first questions I get is, what can I eat? What can I eat now? Until you have been negatively affected by foods, you cannot know what it feels like and haven't had to pay attention to what food causes what reaction until boom, you can't eat anything, nothing, without feeling bad. And it's such a hopeless and helpless situation just to not even be able to put food in your mouth. So as I mentioned in episode 22, everyone has different triggers, be it gluten, sugar, corn, milk, for me, fake sugars. I shared what I learned in my own experience for my body through trial and error, and a whole lot of trial and error. But as we learn more about Crohn's, colitis, or any GI disorder, it's becoming much more clear what we all should and shouldn't be eating, even if we're healthy. So if you have the gift of good health, praise the good Lord for that. But inflammatory foods and things in our daily environment are still affecting you, regardless of your absence of symptoms. So hear, everyone. Everyone listen up. You may get to that threshold, like I said, when you are affected. I certainly pray that you don't. But we know so much more now than we did 30 years ago. We have so many more chemicals and toxins in our world that we did not have 30 years ago or even 10 years ago. It really boils down to avoiding foods and chemicals that cause inflammation. And specifically for GI patients, anything that causes inflammation in our gut that directly touches our gut obviously would be food, inflammatory foods. This makes sense when you know that Crohn's, colitis, IBD, diverticulitis, all of us, we are all under the umbrella of inflammatory bowel diseases. So while it seems obvious anyone with GI issues should pay attention to what you eat, Anyone with an autoimmune disease should avoid inflammatory foods as well, because all disease begins with inflammation. All of it. Inflammation is itis. So if you can think of any disease with itis at the end, that means inflammation. So inflammation that persists or becomes chronic will eventually become a disease state, whether you like it or not. So let's start there, and we're going to go slowly. So when someone says they have inflammation in the body, what is that? As quoted from an article in NIH, and I'll link it up in the show notes, inflammation is an essential biological process that serves as the body's first line of defense against harmful stimuli, including pathogens, damaged cells, and irritants. While acute, meaning immediate is what acute means, inflammation is crucial for healing and recovery. Our bodies are made for that. Chronic inflammation can lead to a variety of chronic inflammatory diseases, including cancer, cardiovascular disorders, and autoimmune conditions. So that was from the article in the NIH. So acute inflammation can be good. It's our body's natural initial response to heal itself. Inflammation aims to eliminate the initial cause of your injury. So think about having a blister. It's protecting a certain part of your body, or you sprained your ankle and all of a sudden everything rushes to your ankle to try to heal it. So there's extra fluid, there's extra blood that's trying to heal. And so it could become immovable, could hurt. Broken bone, same thing. But the whole idea of inflammation is it comes in to clear out the necrotic. Necrotic means dead. So it clears out the necrotic cells and then repairs them. And that's how we heal. So using a blister as an example, I just had the situation over spring break. I walked on the hot sand and then I walked on the hot concrete. And by that evening, I had developed 2 large blisters on the pads of my feet. The blister developed in this case because my skin was too hot. It was sending fluid to the area to probably cool it down, but also to provide protection against the heat and heal the burned or damaged flesh that I had. The fluid moving to the location of what my body was perceiving as trauma and creating this barrier of protection was my body's way of protecting my feet in an acute situation with a form of inflammation, blister, to protect and repair the bottom of my feet. That is an example of acute inflammation that is good and also a very normal inflammatory response to help heal our body right here, right now. And it can be identified by redness or heat, swelling, like a sprained ankle, pain, loss of function. Lots of times, loss of function would be because the swelling has come in that it's difficult to move, like sprained ankle or whatever. These signs result from an increased blood flow, like I said, to the injury site or location, of infection, because that could also be the problem, or an allergic response. So inflammation can also arise out of exposure to harmful substances like inhaling toxic chemicals or immune reactions, allergic reactions like having allergies. Imagine your eyes swelling shut in response to an allergy or a bug bite that swells. Those are all examples of immediate acute inflammation that is short-term because your body thinks it needs to go into an immediate defense mode to protect you. Acute inflammation is typically short-lived, resolving within a few days to weeks. And once the cause of the harm is removed or healed, the inflammation subsides and healing has occurred. That's the good inflammation. Now we're going to cover chronic inflammation. So chronic inflammation refers to prolonged inflammation that can last for months or even years. Unlike acute inflammation, its symptoms are often more subtle and can include fatigue, body pain, a persistent low-grade fever. Talked about that a lot with Crohn's disease. Chronic inflammation can be developing within you and you don't even know it's happening yet. It can be caused by persistent infections that have an ongoing immune system response, long-term exposure to irritants. So say that you work somewhere and there's a chemical that you use every single day, like an industrial chemical. I can't think of an example right now, but that you're in contact with it every single day. That is long-term exposure to an irritant that may not be immediately causing you harm, but it could be internally, or even something like polluted air. Lifestyle factors like poor diet, foods that have terrible ingredients that can cause inflammation, lack of exercise, chronic stress, major inflammation. Autoimmune disorders, conditions where the immune system mistakenly attacks the body's own tissues, such as rheumatoid arthritis, Crohn's, Hashimoto's, Sjogren's disease, all the autoimmune disorders in the world. Those are chronic inflammatory diseases. So chronic inflammation is linked to many diseases, including heart disease, diabetes, cancer, neurodegenerative disorders, and that's just a really big word for Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, MS, any sort of disorder of the brain that is a disease state in our brain. Almost all disease states begin with inflammation. Because the inflammation is long-term, that means it can damage the tissues or the cells and interfere with the body's ability to heal properly. If you have Crohn's disease and your GI tract is chronically inflamed, like mine was, that means that because of all that inflammation for such a long period of time, more than likely, the inflammation in your intestine is preventing the absorption of proper vitamins and nutrients when you eat in your gut, and you can become malnourished over time. And that's why a lot of patients who are Crohn's we've lost weight, or various symptoms happen because we're malnourished, because we're not absorbing our nutrients and our vitamins properly from the food that we eat. The last part of your GI tract before you have a bowel movement is called the colon. The job of the colon is to remove the water from your system so that you can have a solid bowel movement. So to be perfectly blunt, if your colon is inflamed, chronic inflammation from Crohn's disease, which is one of the most primary locations of Crohn's disease, the job of pulling that water out of your colon is impaired and it's unable to do its job well, which leads to the number one symptom of Crohn's, which is chronic diarrhea. It didn't have a chance to pull the water out, so you have diarrhea for Crohn's or colitis. I would even say that's the situation when you have a virus, that the virus is causing the colon not to be able to pull that water out as well, and you're flushing that virus through the system. So it's amazing how our bodies are truly created to heal. So let's see, chronic inflammation can also turn into a callus per se. My own words for visualization. For me, the chronic inflammation brewing in my intestine turned into scar tissue. And I like to think of that as a callus because it caused many areas in my intestines to become narrow. Because it was thicker, more fibrous tissue than the normal intestinal tissue might be, it made it much smaller in the tunnel in places for my food to go through. And that is what you call Crohn's with strictures. And strictures are the narrowing in the intestine from the scar tissue caused by prolonged inflammation. For me, the pressure of food pushing through those strictures that were more and more narrow over time eventually became absolutely blinding pain for me over the years and years of attempting to protect my body from that chronic inflammation. It thought it was protecting me. It thought by providing that fibrous tissue, it was protecting me from whatever was going on with that inflammatory area that was chronic. So understanding the difference between acute or chronic inflammation is crucial. You can manage chronic inflammation through lifestyle choices like a good diet or regular exercise, avoiding triggering foods or products. You can significantly impact long-term health for the better if you pay attention to your individual triggers. It's possible to reverse chronic inflammation to not only feel better, but to heal your body if you understand what the root cause of the inflammation is. And this is where it gets so exciting. So I've been told 100 times that because I have Crohn's disease, I have an autoimmune disease, I will continue to get more and more and more autoimmune diseases. That's just how it works. Haven't we all been told that if you have an autoimmune disease? If you remain in the disease state and don't make health and lifestyle changes, that is a very true statement. But I think greater understanding of autoimmune diseases is coming to light, and not everyone believes this to be true anymore. When I had my very first surgery, I was 24 years old. My stomach was swollen shut. I couldn't even drink water without vomiting. At that time, Crohn's was not really a household name at all, and it was more commonly located in the colon, which I did not have. I had never heard of it, but I was in a large amount of pain, and I was desperate for help. The medical model said, find the symptom and treat it. So the symptom was inflammation. So my doctors, whom I loved, cut a second hole in the bottom of my stomach to relieve that pressure from the original God-made exit that we all have. And in my case, it was completely blocked by inflammation. So by giving me this second exit, it provided wonderful but temporary relief, coupled with an excruciating abdominal surgery to recover from, until guess what? It didn't work anymore because that second hole became inflamed and obstructed the exit to my stomach. So now I had 2 inflamed and obstructed exits, still vomiting, food not going through again. So how many new exits can you put into someone's stomach? I had a polka dot stomach already. Without a doubt, I believe that first surgery caused every other surgery to follow, progressing to a surgery that finally caused me to be septic and ultimately risk my life with much greater severity than I ever knew was coming. My doctors did everything for me that they knew to do in that first surgery. Like I said, I loved them. I trusted them. We just didn't know the right thing to do at the time. Remember that GI doctor at Mayo telling me that healing my body through diet was hogwash? There wasn't enough research. People didn't connect it. They didn't understand it. I have no idea, but I am glad I don't know his name or remember it, because I can't think of any doctor at that level that would lack such critical thinking skills as to say such a thing. I always have this little voice in my head that says our bodies were created to heal. So why can't those of us with autoimmune diseases heal? We have to control what we can control. Then we can heal our bodies. That's my opinion. I'm not a doctor. I have had 8 GI doctors over the years, 3 that were truly my consistent day-to-day doctors. I had mostly really good doctors that in hindsight were already thinking about Crohn's and GI issues more outside the box than many doctors at the time. They had a more whole body foundation and were truly on the cusp of the direction that we're moving today with treating us GI folks. Today, more and more homeopathic practitioners or doctors are looking at the whole body versus just a symptom. And we are gratefully looking at any autoimmune disease from a different angle. First and foremost, we should not stop with, I have inflammation. That's where we stopped. That was my mistake in my first surgery. We should continue that line of questioning by asking, what is the cause of the inflammation? Don't stop with just inflammation. As simple as that sounds, it sure didn't dawn on me 25 years ago. Taking my case specifically, why was my stomach so inflamed? We didn't treat the root cause by cutting a second exit in my stomach. We just treated a symptom that sadly caused many more problems years down the road. In 1998, we stopped short of asking all the right questions. Why was my stomach inflamed? When we look at the whole body, we should be asking multiple questions to get the big picture understanding of our unique body so we can be treated effectively. And before I hit those questions, I must insert that you must be an advocate for your own health. Truly, the best doctor that I had was highly educated, gastroenterologist, top school in the nation with a fellowship in gastroenterology. And the reason I loved him was his humility, but he was not too arrogant to tell me he'd never had Crohn's himself. He didn't know what it felt like, but he sometimes missed asking questions because he admitted he didn't know how to ask them. So he empowered me to always give him all the information. Even if I didn't understand at the time how it mattered, he encouraged me to keep a food journal that noted times of eating, times of pain, 4 times a day body temperature records, when I had a bowel movement, including time of day, and yes, what it looked like. He was trying to look at my whole body and ask every question he knew to ask that was occurring outside my 30-minute office visit. But he still said he always listened closest to his Crohn's patients because we were hyper aware of where our food was in our body at all times, mostly due to inflammation or the strictures. So questions your health provider should be asking you today sound like this. First, gathering of your basic symptoms. When did your problems start? How long have they been going on? How severe are your symptoms? What exactly are your symptoms? Not just the obvious abdominal pain, diarrhea, bloating, but what about headaches, feeling faint, shaky? Those are signs of sugar issues. My left toe itches or my fingernail hurts. Literally tell them every single symptom. GI disease does not only express itself in the gut. They can be symptoms all over the body. A headache from an adverse reaction to food, weakness or shaky, clamminess from blood sugar changes. We have symptoms all over our body. Anytime we have our symptom, our body is telling us, over here, please look over here. Next things your doctor should be asking you is, what are your dietary habits? We should report our regular diet to identify potential food intolerances or triggers that may exacerbate inflammation. Keeping that food journal can be beneficial in pinpointing problematic foods. And I'm not kidding when I say write down everything. Write down if that food had cinnamon in it or garlic in it. There are so many things that could possibly trigger you or cause you to be or be the cause of intolerance. Maybe you eat the heck out of raw vegetables and don't even think to tell your doctor that because you think you're being healthy, when in essence, if you have inflammation, your gut is having a really difficult time breaking down the hard and crunchy raw vegetables, and it's causing you pain. The doctor should also be asking about stress and emotional well-being. This is something that I kind of rolled my eyes at and blew off back then, but every day we are learning more and more about how psychological factors can significantly impact digestive health. Techniques like meditation, yoga, or prayer may manage stress-related digestive issues. For me, prayer and even truly just having quiet time helps me manage the chaos, is something I have mentioned many times before. Do less in your day to keep your body healthy and not in constant fight or flight mode. The gut-brain axis is the communication network linking your GI tract and your central nervous system, which is your brain. And this connection involves many pathways, enabling the brain and the gut to influence each other's functions. So when this axis is damaged, it has been associated with various GI and neurological disorders like irritable bowel syndrome and other issues that may not have a visible physical abnormality, meaning they can't see it in a scope or an X-ray. Changes in the gut-brain axis have been tied to Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, as well as depression and anxiety. So when they tell us that we have two brains, that's how it kind of started about 20 years ago. People would say that they think that our gut's kind of like our brain. It's true. The gut microbiome plays a significant role in these interactions, influencing brain function and behavior, including ADHD and even behavioral issues in kiddos. I remember very clearly seeing my doctor before I left for an amazing opportunity to backpack through Europe for a month after graduate school. I was very, very nervous that I would be in Europe and get sick and ruin my entire trip. He gave me a pill that he said if my stomach ever started to hurt, this is an instant fix to put it under my tongue. He told me it was actually being used off-label because it's used to treat anxiety, but studies were pointing toward a connection in anxiety and acid production. I told you that he was ahead of his time. I did exactly that. If I would get nervous that my stomach was going to hurt just by feeling a tiny pain, I knew how bad it could get. And then I feared the pain and I would overthink it, which regularly led to more pain. So by having that pill during my trip to help me relieve my anxious feelings and the fear of spiraling downward in pain saved my trip. I didn't understand it then, but I sure do now. And I wish I knew what it was that he gave me. But I do remember thinking he was a little crazy for giving me an anxiety pill. I was typically a very low-key, low-stress person. It does not have to do with, what you think you have anxiety as. I internalized a lot of things. My mother always says, Penny, you internalize your feelings. I just always tried to muscle through things and push through things. And I guess that caused an inner stress that affected me. So the reason for the pill had nothing to do with the actual anxiety, but the acid production in my gut. Simply amazing. Another thing your doctor needs to be asking you, obviously, is your medical history. Your practitioner needs to ask deeper questions, though, about your medical history, your family history, uncover any obvious genetic predispositions or past medical treatments, such as antibiotic use, that could influence your gut health. Alarm bells go off there for me, as I firmly believe that all of my issues started from the overuse of antibiotics. We just did not know it at the time, and not one person ever asked me about the use of antibiotics. Another thing your doctor needs to be talking to you about is your lifestyle factors. This is very important. Yet one more thing that my arrogant, medically trained mind didn't give much credence to, but you have to discuss your sleep patterns. Are you getting enough sleep? What is your physical activity? Other lifestyle choices that you make that affect your digestive system. Encouraging regular exercise and adequate rest can support overall gut health. Lots of times we pat ourselves on the back if we take a minute to rest, but rest should be incorporated as a daily part of our lives. Not enough credit is given to sleep, to exercise, or to rest. And when you are sick, this can be a vicious cycle. You're too tired to exercise, and then you're up all night because you're sick, so you can't sleep. For me, I felt the best I ever felt when I was exercising. I needed my food to move through and break down, and I needed that dopamine fix. I exercised 2 hours a day, every day, and I never felt better. I drug myself to the gym. I didn't want to be there, but once I got there and I felt so good, I couldn't stop. So even when I was exhausted from a very physically demanding job, I got myself to the gym, and I always left feeling amazing. Number 4, Doctor needs to ask you about your mental or emotional state. Tell your practitioner about your stresses. Are you stressed out at work? Do you have a relationship that causes you a lot of stress and anxiety that can be contributing to your stomach pain? The more patients I see now, the more clearly I see that there are half of us that our stress is revealed in our stomach, and half of us, our stress is revealed in our headaches. So just like I said, that gut-brain connection, I think we have two brains. Mine goes to my gut every time. I don't get headaches. People with migraines, you know who you are. Something triggered the migraine. But I do believe that our body gets used to the path of least resistance. So to this day, even while I'm healthy, if I get stressed or if I get nervous about something, immediately I'm like curling up my stomach. I know that it's going to my stomach. Number 5, by delving into each of these areas, not only can you begin to help yourself by identifying potential triggers, but a homeopathic practitioner can work with you on addressing the root causes of your chronic gut inflammation, rather than merely attempting to alleviate symptoms with medications. Oh, how I know this sounds so insignificant, because this was me. I was that person. I was so sick. I needed more than you telling me to sleep well or to work on my stress load. In fact, I was at WashU at med school in St. Louis for my master's degree, and my doctors there just told me, oh, you're just in a stressful time of life, and hopefully you'll get better when graduate school was over. And this is before I was diagnosed with Crohn's. I thought that was ridiculous, which shows how very far that I have come. So number 6, they should be asking you if you have a vitamin or mineral deficiency, and this is not the norm. Doctors do not typically test for this. And is the bacteria in your gut out of balance? If I simply had a vitamin or mineral deficiency, rather than experiment with medications that we didn't know would work, and they didn't work, I could have provided my body with the vitamins or the minerals that I was deficient in. Or if the good and bad bacteria in my gut was out of balance, focus on ways to get rid of the bad bacteria and reinforce the good bacteria. We have been taught that when something is wrong, we take medicine. For Crohn's, not one medication that I ever took, and I took a lot of medications, ever worked for me. Or if it worked for a minute, it caused serious side effects. So wouldn't it do us all so much better if we changed our frame of reference from taking a pill immediately made in a lab to possibly seeing if we need to take a vitamin or we need a mineral supplement or perhaps a probiotic because our gut balance is off? Such a great question. Go from changing to taking a pill to perhaps let's reinforce what your deficiencies are. I firmly believe that my issues stemmed from long-term low-dose use of tetracycline prescribed by my dermatologist. I've said this a million times. He provided it for all of my friends. It wasn't his fault. That's what they did as preventative skincare. I did not have acne. It was just preventative. So studies now link tetracycline to Crohn's disease and the stripping of the lining of your stomach, which is exactly what happened to my stomach. If we knew then how about a huge push for probiotics and working on giving my unhealthy gut more healthy bacteria to balance the good and the bad, reduce the overgrowth of the bad bacteria, and ultimately heal my stomach without a single surgery. Wow, wouldn't that have been amazing? I can't tell you that it would have worked perfectly, but I'm inclined to think that it would if we knew what we were talking about then, because I firmly believe it was that gut imbalance that initiated my inflammation. So in summary, all diseases begin with inflammation, not just gut disease. It is important that we listen to our bodies and determine if the inflammation we might be experiencing is acute or a temporary reaction to attempt to heal our body, or chronic, long-term inflammation that can lead to long-term problems. Number 2, we want to look at our entire body. Keep a food journal. Write down what you eat, what time, any negative symptom that you have when you go to the bathroom if it's normal. And the best advice I received was to track my temperature 4 times a day. Low-grade temperature is a sure sign of disease. Write out a list of every single complaint you have down to the itch on the top of your foot. Everything our body tells us is a tell. It is telling us something is wrong over here. Come take a look over here. Please come look over here. Don't leave out a tingle, a headache, being dizzy, or your fingernail hurting. As I joke with my son, he always tells me that. If you have a good doctor, they will look at every symptom you have and take them seriously. So in fact, after I recorded this, I created a free downloadable food journal just for you. It includes a place for food, temperature, symptoms, and a little observation section to help you connect any dots that you can. Happy for you to have that to help you on your journey. Use it however you like or don't use it at all. It's just a starting point to help you start being aware of your body, listening to your body, being aware of your symptoms and your potential triggers. Like I said, none of us have the same triggers. Number 3, make sure that you're seeing a practitioner that is looking beyond the inflammation and looking at your whole body, asking about your stresses, your emotions, your eating habits, your lifestyle, your sleep cycles, and your exercise. We need to know it all. It is all very, very important. Number 4, ask your practitioner to be tested for vitamin and mineral deficiencies, and they may look at you like you're crazy. And if they do, go find someone who will. Find a homeopathic or a functional medicine doctor, because vitamins and minerals carry so much more weight than I ever gave them credit in keeping my body functioning. That is a fact. And number 5, focus on the balance of the good and bad bacteria in your gut, often referred to as your gut biome. But recognize that your gut starts with your mouth and it ends with your anus. It is literally one long hollow tube, or it should be. We will focus on this in an upcoming episode as well. The next several episodes, we will address what foods cause inflammation, what foods reduce inflammation, how to find a good probiotic, and if in a flare, how to calm your system quickly. What are antioxidants and free radicals? These are all the notes I've been taking as we've been going through. Oh, we need to talk about that and that and that. And what do free radicals have to do with your gut? After we have covered a lot of the things that go in your body, we will talk about a lot of the things that are in our environment that also go on our body or around our body. There is so much to get to. I can't wait to share it all. Oh, how I wish I had known these things when I was first diagnosed. Thank you so much for listening today. Thank you so much for being here and being a fan. I look so forward to diving into way more subjects in the next few weeks to come. I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you've enjoyed today's episode, hit that follow button, leave a 5-star review if you're so willing, and help spread the message of Becoming Natural by sharing it with a friend. Check out the resources in the show notes and join the email list to stay on top of all the latest and greatest happenings at Becoming Natural as we roll out exciting new things while we grow. Until next time, take those baby steps to a more natural life and always give yourself grace. Progress, not perfection, is the goal. See you next week.